YouTube, my name is Jake Asman. Welcome in to my channel. Joining me today to talk all things New York Jets football is a good friend of the show, the host of the Turn on the Jets podcast, the great Will Parkinson. Will, my man, how you doing?
I'm good, man. I'm excited. We're finally getting into week one. Training camp is in the rear view mirror, and it's starting to really feel like football season's really here.
No doubt. So we've been doing these videos since, the debate on what to do with Sam, and obviously to take a quarterback at 2. Then we did videos throughout the draft, some training camp videos. Now we're here, right? Final preseason game is in the books. The Jets are going to have to get their roster down to just 53 players. So we are at the crux of the end here of August, and soon enough, Week 1 against the Carolina Panthers. In this video, we will do a 53-man roster projection. We'll talk about the Eagles preseason game from last night, evaluate the Jets throughout the summer, and look ahead to Week 1. But first, if you're new to the channel, 1, thank you for watching. 2, please subscribe down below. Like this video, comment on this video. It helps the YouTube algorithm and continues to help my channel grow. And you, of course, need to be subscribed to Will's podcast. Once again, that's Turn on the Jets. He covers the Jets as well as anybody out there, has huge names on his pod. So definitely check out his podcast. All right, with that being said, Will, let's start, I guess, with the game last night. To me, and I did a video on this last night, to me, the best part about the game last night was that Zack Wilson didn't play. When I saw the turf was, an absolute mess. When I saw the Jets were going to be without, obviously, 2 starting offensive linemen, wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. It just didn't make sense to play Zack. He didn't need the reps. He's already looked great this summer. He's had plenty of joint practices. He's had, obviously, all the reps going back to OTAs and mini camp. So I thought that was a smart decision by Robert Saleh and company to rest Zack Wilson and the other key starters. Did you agree with the decision? Your thoughts there?
Yeah, I just didn't think that the upside for playing him wasn't enough. If he was going to play a whole half and they were going to go full starters, similar with kind of what the Panthers did, where they kind of went the reverse of the Jets a little bit, and the Giants and other teams have done that. If they would have gone full starters, Becton plays, AVT plays, Moses, Van Rod, McGovern, all those guys are in. You get some reps. Davis is playing. Not sure I would have necessarily even agreed with that, but at least they would have made sense because those are valuable reps. But what's the upside? We were all, as much as Mark Sanchez was struggling at the time, 2014 sticks out in everyone's head in that Giants game and kind of ended his career. So not worth it, in my opinion, to play Zack last night. Then the rain comes, definitely not worth it. Becton's concussion, even more so not worth it. I just think that they kind of realized they got enough out of those. The 4 joint practices is what they got the most out of the entire summer. Zack, like you said, Zack's taken every single rep. With the ones he's gotten, obviously some 2 guys, sprinkle in there, but he's got enough reps. Also, we got 42 snaps, in preseason games, 4 joint practices, OTAs, camp. The upside was not there to play any of those guys, frankly. Even like a guy like Foley Fatukasi, I'm shocked played last night. He had a good game, so it doesn't matter. Ty Johnson, but yeah, the Jets resting their starters felt like, oh, this organization gets it. Like we just talked about 400 times. They might have had the bad luck with Lawson and these other guys during camp, but the actual competency of what's going on is refreshing, to say the least.
Overall, big picture with Zack Wilson now. So you look at his numbers in the 2 games we saw him in, and here are some key takeaways that I thought. 6 series, 4 of them ended up being scoring drives, no turnovers, no pre-snap penalties. He wasn't even hit, so the line did a good job protecting him. The play calling was good. He got the ball out quick and knew what to do with it. And then obviously, statistically, 15 of 20, 2 touchdowns, 191 yards passing, a quarterback rating of 137.7. Yes, it's preseason. Yes, he's not going up against a lot of starters when he's been out there, but he has been impressive. And overall, I think he looks ready to be the guy. Now, that does not mean, Jet fans, that Wilson's not going to have bad games. He's a rookie. It's going to happen. But I think as far as just his NFL readiness, I think Zack Wilson proved he's ready to be a starting quarterback from day one for this Jets team.
Yeah, there's some really impressive takeaways. Got things like the ball was out in 6-7 seconds or something according to PFF. No turnover worthy throws. Didn't get hit one time, which that was the whole thing on BYU. Oh, its level of competition, didn't get hit. Well, that hasn't changed yet. We've kind of seen same, and honestly, the step up even going against 2s in the NFL for the most part. It's not like the Jets were trotting out there every single guy either that they're just going to trot out there during Carolina. AVT and Elijah Moore are huge cogs of this offense. Jamison Crowder wasn't used very much in the preseason. So like the starters versus backup thing, just want to squash that before I even get into Zack Wilson, because there's nothing you can do about that. That's the preseason every single year. You can't say Mac Jones and Justin Fields look great and then also be like Zack Wilson doesn't look great because it's the two. I don't get that. Justin Fields is playing against fours half the time. So, you know what I mean? Like you can't do both. You either just say, we'll take it in with a grain of salt. Does it translate to the regular season? No. Statistically, look over time, it makes no difference how well he or doesn't play. But for the Jets fans and the coaching staff's confidence, it was important. Zack Wilson looked really good. The thing's 44 air yards on that crazy throw to Corey Davis down the sideline. The arm looks really good. The feet look good. We haven't even seen him do half the stuff he's even great at yet. You saw one or two glimpses of it, but I've been really impressed. He's thrown outside the numbers a bunch. He's thrown over the middle of the field. He's thrown short. He's thrown quick. He's thrown deep outs and seams and he's kind of checked every single box and gotten better as the preseason's gone on. He had a rough patch in the beginning of camp. The scrimmage was obviously really disappointing. It was the first time I think a lot of fans saw him in person. It happens. He's 21 years old, and it's a lot to your first NFL. He kind of got those jitters out of the way, and when the lights have come on the last two times, he's looked really, really good. You hear the compliments from Rodgers, you hear the compliments from the Eagles beat writers, their staff about Zack Wilson. I'm not saying he's going to be a top 10 quarterback this year, but I would be very surprised if everyone comes away from 2021 doesn't go, Zack Wilson's the real deal, and he's a guy I would want to build my franchise around going forward. So that's kind of my overall takeaway with him. He's flashed all those skills, and the Jets haven't even gone through their, the way they're really going to scheme up a game plan against Carolina, get him on the move, use his legs a little bit, get him outside the pocket. Like they haven't even done that stuff yet, and he's looked that impressive. So if he's doing the things, I know Dan Orlovsky mentioned this, and he was doing a breakdown of them, was saying, that throw he makes over the seam to Tyler Kroft, just that quick head movement and the way he's able to his footwork. And this is not ripping Sam. Everyone that's listened to me knows I love Sam, and he played well last night, whatever. But Sam's footwork was always a problem, and it was always kind of led him to make bad decisions because his body and his arm and his head were all out of sync. Zack Wilson doesn't feel that way. Everything is so sharp mechanically, and then he's got natural arm talent, right? So that's what makes him really special. And that throw to look off the safety and make sure that Tyler Kroft doesn't get, that hospital throw over to touchdown. And yes, again, it's preseason, but that's those throws you do make in the regular season. Like the game doesn't change that much. It's just who's out there. And then lastly, like I said, the comments too, mentally, it seems like he really gets it. Like I know people, there's the coward stuff with the Manziel and all these Baker, and he doesn't give any of those vibes off at all. It's very business oriented. He's talked about it. He's like, I want to hear everything Aaron Rodgers has to say. I want to hear all the information he can give me. And it's really cool Rodgers did that. And it's not, just because he's one of the best players ever, but it's just the fact that he took Wilson under his wing. It took a Jets quarterback under their wing. You don't see that stuff. But he just consumes knowledge, learns, does the right things. And I think long term, people are going to really ingratiate themselves to this guy gets it. He's really good. And, if he's not good, it's because he's not because the Jets, screwed him over, and similar to things they've done in the past.
The play calling this preseason, it was eye-opening. Obviously you go from Adam Gase to anyone and you're going to be like, wow, this is what real offensive football is supposed to look like. But the Jets having guys in motion, easy completions for their quarterbacks, different screens that are creating some easy pass lanes for the QB.
Even look at last night, right? Third string guys, Josh Johnson, that first drive. They weren't giving anything away they do the regular season, but end arounds, just some motion, getting guys in comfortable positions to be able to say, okay, now I can properly evaluate Ty Johnson or properly evaluate Lawrence Cager. Under Adam Gase, it's, and we can obviously go on and on about this, but it's just, there is a stark difference. You see this team's well coached. Did the Jets, I know it's preseason, it doesn't matter. But the fact that they came back in that game and how excited these guys are to want to compete and want to win, you have to build culture somewhere. And I've been on a lot of bad teams. I've been on a lot of good teams, but the bad teams, they would have been yeah, who cares? Preseason doesn't matter. Does it translate to wins in the regular season? I don't know. But if they're in a close game, at least they've had experience now of getting guys in a mental capacity to go, okay, this is what it feels like to win. The Jets have won two games last year. They were bad. They were really bad. So they've already won more games in a preseason than they've won, they won in 2020. And I think that does matter for guys' egos, their confidence, feels good to not be like same old Jets, they suck. That does matter a little bit, in my opinion, at least.
Robert Saleh undefeated as Jets head coach right now, Will. So that's the key stat from the preseason. How about this though? We of course talked about Zack Wilson, and the big storyline from the game, as I mentioned, is he didn't play, and that was the right move. I thought, you think as well, by Robert Saleh and company. But the guys that did play last night, give me your biggest takeaways from some of the running backs that we saw make some plays last night. Maybe some of the receivers fighting for a roster spot, and then we'll change gears. We'll talk about this Jets defense because there are some guys that played last night that will have a significant role on the 2021 Jets defense.
So throughout camp, kind of going in, I thought probably Michael Carter's the starter, and then it'll be Tevin Coleman, and then Ty Johnson, then LaMichael Piron. Piron had a nice camp. When the lights come on, it seems like it's kind of the same 3-4 tough yards a carry. He runs hard. He's a powerful back, and he's good in pass blocking, but I don't know how many reps. Maybe he gets 2 to 3 carries a game. Tevin Coleman's a good scheme fit, a veteran that, has – we'll see how much juice he has left. He's made some nice plays, but, he's a guy who often is hurt. So then kind of comes down to the 2 lead backs we saw a lot last night. I think Ty Johnson's an incredible scheme fit. He has that burst that, is really impressive. He seems to be able to get the most big play, positive yards out of the run game in that outside zone, system. So I'd honestly expect Ty Johnson's, the opening day starter. And if he's not this, technical first place starter, I think he gets the most carries, at least early on. Michael Carter's going to be really big in the receiving game. I think he's going to have a big role, but those 2 running backs, kind of stood out to me. I know Josh Adams had a nice night. I don't see him making the roster. Maybe he's on the practice squad for the 500th time, but and he's a fine running back. It's just, I don't think he does anything better than any of the other guys in a particular area. So yeah, Ty Johnson to me is RB1 for the Jets going into week 1 against Carolina. And then I think it'll be a combination of Carter, who, I think will develop throughout the year. Remember, he's still a rookie. He's kind of working his way in. Tevin Coleman will make some plays. He's the veteran in the room. And then, Piron's kind of the wild card. He's, like I said, good in pass blocking. He's a big special teams guy for them. So I think he makes the roster. I just don't know how much he plays, unless maybe short yardage situations and things like that. But yeah, Ty Johnson was the biggest takeaway for me.
Defensively, anything stand out? Obviously, the Jets are going with the youth movement at corner. They don't think it's a weakness. Saleh thinks there's some starters there that we're going to get a chance to watch develop throughout the year. Your thoughts on the Jets secondary entering the season now?
Yeah, I meant to kind of hit on the receivers. Obviously, the Smith brothers are guys that are like interesting to be on the team, and I think people are like not as excited about them, but they both had nice camps, in my opinion. They both I think Vincent probably makes it over Jeff Smith from the aspect of he's their kick returner and like is really, really big on special teams. And for anyone that's in my mentions or anybody's mentions with, roster predictions, coaches and GMs value special teams really heavily when it comes to depth guys. If you're not a starter, you have to be a guy that's on special teams to really, cement yourself on the roster. And you look at guys like, Vincent Smith or Berrios or Blake Cashman or Justin Hardy, guys like that on the Jets who, like, oh, they're twos. Why like they such a lock? It's because they play on virtually every special teams, and that's really important in the NFL and any level of football, obviously. But so those are the 2 receivers. I think the Jets keep 7 receivers. I think they try to figure out a way to keep Berrios and both Smiths, but I don't see how that's going to happen unless a roster spot opens up with someone that's on IR. But defensively, the Jamie and Sherwood thing's interesting. He's transitioned from safety to the NFL to he's playing middle linebacker a lot during camp with the 2s, and now he's going to probably start at Sam. He's got a lot of physical talent. He hits really hard. He's apparently really sharp in the classroom, and Sal kind of comped him to the transition Fred Warner made. Sherwood's game speed leaves a lot to be desired. It's part of why he made the move. At the slowest 10-yard split of any safety at the combine. So that's and not that he's a slow guy. He still ran a 4.7 something. So it's not like he's some slow linebacker, but he definitely, the game speed's gonna be interesting. I think you're gonna see the ups and downs with him. I think next to Mosley, it'll be a little different. I think CJ Mosley's gonna obviously kind of protect some of the gaps with him. But last night was not pretty. That first drive, you were like, oh boy, this is tough. But again, I think they have the 5th youngest roster and like 30 guys who had never taken a preseason snap before going into camp. Probably, I have 19 or 20 guys making the roster that are never played in the NFL, so it's a lot. Defensively, corner wise, it's just going to be up and down, similar to linebacker. I feel like they're going to, I expect them to pick up an edge or two in the waiver, and during waiver claims and trade market. There's a bunch of names that we can go through those that I think they're likely to target. But, if a veteran corner gets cut, I could see them making a move. It's probably going to be Bless Austin and Bryce Hall to start the year. Eccles has had a nice camp. He's kind of up and down. He's got a weird body type for an outside corner. He's more short and stock. He kind of looks like that slot prototypical corner. Guidry will probably start at slot. Joiners looked really good in practice. In my opinion, Marcus May is Marcus May. So defensively, they've got some big names in terms of Quinnen and Rankins, who's looked awesome. Mosley's, he's CJ Mosley, and he looked every bit the part. When I've seen him, it's just they're going to have weeks they look really good and they get pressure, and they're going to keep the Jets in games, and it's going to be really fun. And there's other games where, frankly, they might get cooked, and it's going to be like a big learning experience for a Bryce Hall to go against Stephon Diggs for 85 snaps. And that's not a bad thing where this team is at developmental-wise, but there's definitely some – the defense is going to be like very Jekyll and Hyde, to be honest with you. I just don't think you're going to know what each week you're going to get because of the youth and new coaching staff. But look, Saleh, there's a reason he was so renowned as a defensive coordinator, and you hope that he can get the most out of these young guys and develop them. So in 2022, the Jets go, okay, we need 2 corners and a middle linebacker, and that's what we're going to attack in the draft, as opposed to like, we need 11 guys,
It's clear that Saleh is very high on Guidry, by the way. Just looking at Saleh mic'd up the other day and what the Jets put out on their social media, the way he's coached him up. Even last night in the post-game press conference after the Eagles game, referenced Guidry's speed, and they think he's going to be a real player. So they're definitely going youth movement there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they don't end up being good players, and now they get the valuable experience in a rebuilding year. So, Will, as far as other guys on this 53-man roster, who's on the bubble, who played themselves potentially onto the team last night? I got a lot of questions last night in my post-game recap video about Kenny Yeboah making the team after his strong performance last night. Kind of go through some of the guys on the bubble as you look at the 53-man roster.
Yeah, Yeboah is interesting. I saw a lot of people that are bigger on Jets Twitter and the NFL Twitter like, oh, he should make the roster over Griffin or Herndon. And I know he had a nice night last night. A couple practices I've been at, I was not impressed at all. He had a couple big drops, and I was like, this isn't good. But he's also, and again, undrafted rookie coming into camp. You're going to have ups and downs. He looked really good last night. He's a guy that has high upside. I was just kind of surprised he went undrafted. Him and Isaiah Dunn were guys I was confused why they didn't get drafted. But Yeboah is probably a practice squad guy, which isn't a bad thing. I mean, it's for the Jets, if they can get undrafted guys in the practice squad and develop them throughout the year. I think it's 16 practice squad guys this year. So, and 2 can have played over 2 NFL seasons. So that's why quarterback's interesting. I think, you look at guys like, I think Mike White is probably the backup. I think I would rather have Josh Johnson. Yes. Nick Mullins, I'd probably stay away from, who just got cut, who's, is going to get cut today. I don't know. He hasn't really looked very good, and he got hurt last year. But I know Saleh really likes him, and he's with him in the Niners. So quarterbacks
had him though.
You could have had him all offseason.
Yeah.
That's why I don't. I know it's a big thing. Like if you take your fan hat off and a guy, it looks like it's such an obvious fit for something, and it's not happening. There's a reason why it's not happening.
Bingo.
So yeah, the Mullins thing. I think Morgan will probably get stashed on the practice squad. One of him and White. I think it would suck. I know we talked about this right before camp. It's going to suck if the Jets have to cut James Morgan a year into drafting him in the 4th round when that team needed talent last year. And you can blame it on Adam Gase, and I'm more than happy to do so. But that pick's going to look really bad if him, Jabari Zuniga, who's a guy that will probably get stashed in IR. I think he's played his way off the roster during camp, has done virtually nothing. That's been unfortunate. Those are the type of names, like the guys from last draft class. It's difficult because there's some of them that like have just gotten hurt and not been able to stay healthy. Cam Clark, obviously, I'm glad to hear he's okay, but he's going to miss the year and he'll get stashed in IR. Trying to think of some other guys that are kind of bubble guys. The corner room's interesting. Isaiah Dunn's a guy that got a lot of buzz in OTAs. Probably more likely a practice squad guy. Again, it's okay. He's an undrafted guy and they can develop him. I just don't know that he makes the roster right away, but he could. He's a guy that, maybe it's 50-50. Quarterback and tight end room, though, are the rooms I would watch the most because it's kind of difficult. Like tight end, maybe the Jets love Yeboah's upside and don't think they can get him through waivers. It's also, they're going to have to eat money if they cut Ryan Griffin, who I know is not an exciting name. And don't know that he needs to be on this roster, but I can see it. He's a veteran, and you never know. Daniel Brown's a special teams guy, but I think he probably gets cut at tight end position. Josh Adams, again, I talked about this earlier. He's probably a guy that you're watching on the bubble. He probably tried to play his way onto the roster last night, which was impressive, similar to Josh Johnson, but they're also veterans that you kind of know what you're getting. So it's the room's interesting. I think, again, receiver is interesting just because there's probably 8 to 9 guys that have a chance. Cager, has had a couple of moments, but he's also kind of like spare. You could probably stash him on the practice squad if you get him through waivers. So there's just, with that bigger practice squad, like I mentioned, and some of those positions, tight end, receiver. Look, it's nice that the Jets have 8 or 9 receivers that you want to keep. I don't know, in my lifetime and your lifetime, I know we're similar ages. I don't remember that ever happening. Even when the Jets had, 2015, there was 3 good guys. Like, there's legitimately 7 or 8 guys that can play, which is awesome. But again, you can only keep so many guys. There's just gonna be a lot of gymnastics with IR guys, who goes on, the PUP list, like Nash and Davis. They have a decision to make here. Do they really think he comes back week 2? He was sprinting off to the side in practice the other day. They need him back. But if they put him on the PUP list, they can keep another guy on the roster, and then he comes back week 6, so by the bye week. So those are all the type of things that I would look out for myself.
You kind of look at the receiver room in particular. I think they're only going to take 7 receivers, so there's 2 guys that could get cut that maybe in other years would make this team. So you're certainly right about the depth that the Jets have there.
Someone wrote I would cut Zack Wilson.
Try again next draft. Yeah, I think Zack Wilson's spot on the roster is certainly safe. So here's a couple more for you, Will, and then we will open it up to some questions here. Thanks to the 97 plus people that are watching this live. If you have any questions for myself or Will, throw them in the chat box and we'll hit on a bunch of them as we wrap up here. Overall, big picture thoughts just on training camp. What did you like? What did you not like? I mean, obviously, the one thing we all didn't like was seeing the injuries, including the most devastating one possible to the defense with Carl Lawson. But what did you like about training camp, and what did you wish maybe you saw more of from Jets training camp?
I'll start with the negative because I actually think there's more positive than there's negative. The 2 negatives, I guess, there's 3 negatives. One is the D-line, especially specifically edge. Not just Lawson, but Vinny Curry is a loss. And I know he didn't get to play, and he's an older guy and stuff like that, but he was in a position where, like, the Jets had, like, they thought they were going to be 5 or 6 deep at edge, and they're now, like, 2 or 3 deep and, like, needing to add there. And it's not just Lawson, which is obviously devastating. That's the number one most brutal thing, obviously. The other 2 negatives, one was it's disappointing because the tight end room really, I know it wasn't a strength of this team, but Chris Herndon just didn't win the job. I like Tyler Cross. He's a nice NFL player, solid, doesn't really provide much upside, doesn't really, he's not going to be negative. But Chris Herndon should be winning that job, and I was a little disappointed to not see that. I thought I would see more of him. He's had moments where he kind of flashes a little bit, but he kind of goes unnoticed during the practices I've been at, which is not great for a skill guy. Like, as a lineman or something, going unnoticed is a great thing. It's the opposite at tight end. Like, I'd like to know you're on the field. So that was a little disappointing. And then 3, just that Elijah Vera-Tucker, Mekhi Becton, McGovern, Van Roden, and either Moses or Fant didn't get to play like any reps together. And I know AVT got hurt early in camp, then Becton just got the concussion. There's a million different things, right? Fant had COVID because he didn't get vaccinated in time. That's a whole nother story. And then, Moses played, but he's been up and down. So, like, the offensive line not getting joint practices or full practices to gel together is really important over the, like, I hope come Monday or Tuesday they can get that in because it's O-line chemistry is really important. So those are just the negatives. That the injuries obviously are, always in camp is that. And then I just was disappointed from the tight end room. Positives, I think Zack Wilson's a positive. He grew a lot during camp, and I think that's, again, this season is all about is Saleh coach, and they see the guy going forward, which I think we all think, and is Zack the guy? Because if that's the case, now you have your 2 most important things in your organization set. Then you can start to build, and then if they go 5-12 and Zack's awesome, unfortunately that's just the reality of the way things go. That Zack's a positive. The receiver room's a huge positive. Corey Davis I expected to be good. He's looked awesome. He's looked more and more like that number 5 overall pick, more than he looked in Tennessee. And I mean, obviously he was good last year, but Ty Johnson was a nice surprise. I thought he was a guy that the Raiders game last year, but the Raiders defense was like Swiss cheese, and that's like you couldn't get a good evaluation. He looks pretty good. Other surprises for me, Javelin Guidry looked really good during camp. Had his moments. Obviously, every corner is going to get beat, but it's nice to see him kind of establish himself in that slot corner job. Bryce Huffin has had a really good camp. In my opinion, I like the way he's kind of produced. And then Ham said Jamien Sherwood. I think, again, the Jamien Sherwood struggle last night, 100%. Did he have some other really good moments during camp where you go, this guy is going to be an NFL player? Yeah, you did. So those are it was nice to see some of these young guys. Lastly, Elijah Moore. I know we only got probably a week and a half out of him of camp, but dude looks unreal. So
he's ready.
Think that,
he's good to go.
I just think that he's a guy that like camp's not quite as important for as a rookie. Whereas I'm confident AVT will be fine, but he's going to have some bumps and bruises. Fletcher Cox definitely, welcomed him to the NFL this week, and Fletcher Cox is unreal. And if I see one more person on Eagles or Jets Twitter tell me Fletcher Cox is washed, put on the tape. He's not washed at all. That dude's huge, and he kind of gave, Samini was talking about this on my podcast that he beat AVT. He only got 10 to 12 reps this week, and he's working his way back. He's a rookie, so do not panic, Jets fans. But he beat AVT and then, walked by him and shoved him, chirping him and trying to get in his head. And AVT was like, it's Fletcher Cox, a big boy. So, there's a lot more positives than negatives, in my opinion. The loss and injury definitely is unfortunately the headline, but Wilson developing and looking really good in training camp should be all anyone's talking about, honestly.
Yeah, to me, positive. Zack Wilson's the number one thing for sure. He looks ready. I think the Jets, how they handled him throughout the, OTAs, mini camp, into the preseason, it's been the right way to do it. Give him the job. Let him get every rep. None of this fake competition nonsense. You look at what Jacksonville did with Trevor Lawrence. I mean, they didn't even name him the starter until, earlier this week. They're stealing reps in practice where Gardner Minshew's taking snaps with the ones. These reps could have all gone to Trevor Lawrence, whereas the Jets said, Wilson, you're the guy. Here you go. And they made sure that he was ready to go. So I agree.
You sure Jalen Hurts is better than Gardner Minshew?
I'm not, actually. And, I've made this point about Gardner Minshew. I'm going to talk about this on my radio show today on Sports Map Radio from 3 to 6 Eastern. If Gardner Minshew had been a first-round pick, he'd be getting a third season to put it all together like Sam Darnold got last year with the Jets, like Daniel Jones is getting this year. Like Gardner Minshew's
his numbers are better than Daniel Jones. They did a thing on DMFB the other day, and I was like, it's actually not even close.
Yeah, and they're better than Darnold's, too, through the first couple of years. Gardner Minshew's like 37 touchdowns, 11 picks or 16 picks. I mean, look, he was a 6th-round pick.
I'm shocked they didn't get more. I thought they were going to get more for him, to be honest with you. There's other teams that could have used Minshew, and I know the Eagles kind of make sense, I guess, if they're not totally in on Hurts. They're kind of waiting to see, and he's got all the other stuff going on. But I don't know. I mean, he's probably the best backup in the league, and I feel like even if I was like the Cowboys, honestly, with the way Dak's arm and his ankles kind of developed throughout camp, why I would have given up a 4th-round pick for Minshew to be like, because Gardner Minshew could still take that Cowboys team to the playoffs, or Washington and be like, sit behind Fitz, but when Fitz gets bad, they have Heineke in, I guess. But I'm just saying, like, I was very surprised that he didn't go for more, because backups are really valuable in the league. And if you can get one on a cheap deal that can play, which is very rare, I would have jumped all over that. Or Detroit even, I don't know.
Dallas to me made the most sense. I mean, have you seen Ben DiNucci and Cooper Rush play this summer? Right? I mean,
you saw Dak on Hard Knocks. He didn't even want to throw the cake with his right arm. That was like really concerning. That he thought about it, went, I don't know. Let me, it's unweighted cake, and he was still like a little hesitant.
Right. So. Yeah, I think Gardner Minshew could play. I think he's I'm not sitting here and telling you he's a franchise quarterback, but I agree. I think he's a solid player. He would have made total sense for Dallas and
he's almost like a Fitz, but like not a bad locker room guy, in the sense where like Fitz kind of bounced around the league, and like you don't really want to build around him, but you also like feel confident he can win you football games on any given Sunday. So whatever. I know it's not the Jets, but it's just a sidebar.
No doubt about that. Thanks to the 120 people that are watching this video right now. Do me a favor, like this video down below. It helps the YouTube algorithm. And please, of course, subscribe to my channel. Will, of course, is the host of the Turn on the Jets podcast. If you are a Jet fan and you need a Jets podcast, Turn on the Jets is the best Jet podcast out there. Will does a great job. Huge guest, talking Jets, talking everything NFL. Let's open it up as we wrap up here, Will, for a couple of questions. If you have a question, write it in the comment box, and we will do our best to hit on it as quickly as we can. I saw we had a question here from Quarterwater BX. Who will be the Jets starting running back? I think this is simple. I don't think they're going to have one starting running back. They're going to be using a bunch of different dudes. I mean, Tevin Coleman might technically be the starter week 1, as we saw in the first preseason game. And as we've seen, throughout the summer as far as team reps, but it's going to be a bunch of different guys getting the opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's a week-to-week thing. I think the 49ers, I know I don't want to always compare the Jets to the 49ers because it is a different roster and the Jets are going to do some stuff slightly their own way. But they've got 4 backs I think they feel good about. I think they feel really good about 3 of them. Week-to-week basis, Raheem Mostert 1 week and then Matt Breida the next week and then Tevin Coleman, you looked at that. Raheem Mostert didn't start the week before and then against the Packers in that NFC title game, had 250 yards and looked like Barry Sanders. And then the next week, Coleman gets reps and all these guys. So, yeah, I mean, I agree. I think Ty Johnson will get the most carries early in the season. Michael Carter might get the most touches just because of his ability in the passing game. And Tevin Coleman's that strong veteran presence that has top end speed to break one. So, yeah, it'll be running back by committee. I don't think it'll be, 300 carries for one guy and then everyone else has 50. I think it'll be broken up pretty evenly between the 3 or 4 backs.
I want to point out this guy, Mo, in the comments. I don't know if he's a Jet fan, but he might be the most negative Jet fan I've ever seen. He's talking about how Ryan Leaf looked good in the preseason, and then once the season starts, the Jets are going to disappoint. Not anymore, Mo. No longer the same old Jets. We got Robert Saleh and Zack Wilson. We got a new era of Jets football, and I can't wait. Take that, Mo. Take that.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, preseason's just preseason, and you can't take too much from it. Aaron Rodgers went like 2 for 8 in his first preseason game, but all you look for in preseason is, does this guy belong, and can they show the traits at college that made them get drafted to the point they are, especially for those top end quarterbacks. And Zack Wilson's done that. He'll have to do it against starting defenses, and he'll have to do it, in games, but there's nothing to not be just as excited as you were on draft day about Zack Wilson, if not more so, just to say the arm's real. Like, people have never seen him in person, Jets fans. So that's why I think there is some excitement, and it's totally well-deserved, honestly.
He's played well, and the arm looks real. He looks a lot bigger than what people thought, and the buzz around the league from people that know what they're talking about is all positive about Zack Wilson. So, yeah, every Jet fan should be excited. You had to sit through Adam Gase the last 2 years, and before that, Todd Bowles, and you haven't had a season that has really mattered since 2010. So, yeah, every Jet fan has a right to be excited. This is one of the most passionate fan bases in sports, and you should be excited about the direction of this team. D. Mars writes in, what edge would you like to see the Jets trade for? I've made this point a lot, Will. There's no one out there to me that's going to really move the needle. Anyone they pick up on waivers is not going to move the needle. It's just going to be a depth signing. Losing Lawson, there's no way to replace him. Is there a guy you look at and say, hey, this is who they should go after? Because, I heard a lot of Jet fans yesterday saying, oh, Shaq Lawson's available. I cover the Texans here in Houston. Shaq Lawson's not good. Shaq Lawson's playing in the fourth quarter of the preseason game last week against the Cowboys. He's not it. He's not going to move the needle. He was a big name because he was a first-round pick once upon a time. There's really nobody out there that the Jets could trade for that I'd say, boom, they just fixed their Carl Lawson problem, because there's no one to replace a guy that good.
Yeah, they probably have to add at least 1, if not 2 guys. Shaq Lawson is on my list of guys that I can see the Jets making a call on. I know it was reported yesterday they're looking to shop Lawson, which is, we don't have to get in the Texans. I mean, I don't know how do you trade for a guy and then trade him right away? It's like, everyone's cementing the Patriots as Super Bowl title winners because they traded for Sean Wade. The Ravens fleeced them because they just drafted him. They have him in camp and they were moving off a guy 3 months after taking him. It's a huge red flag. So just, take that for what it's worth. But guys I look at, I think Derek Barnett probably won't get moved now just because of the contract restructure. He's got a year left. He's a former first-round pick. He's been semi-productive, 5-6 sacks a year. I think Douglas was there when they drafted him, so I could see that. I think he got overdrafted a bit. So, he's a guy I'd take a look at. Carl Granderson's a guy in New Orleans who's huge upside. Has a domestic violence abuse thing in his past, so I'm not sure Douglas makes a move there. I mean, I know it's in the past, but let's see. I'd make calls on Marcus Davenport. I'd make a call on Josh Sweat. I'd make a call, guys like that. Do I think they're going to move those guys? Probably not. They're both 24 years old and have shown flashes. Davenport probably hasn't lived up to the expectations of where New Orleans took him. But he's a guy that, like, Douglas has made a pretty clear he takes guys that are drafted highly that were really good out of college, and if they've got bad tape, a Jared Davis, for example, or you look at guys like, Corey Davis, all these guys where like they might not have hit their peak yet, but they have huge ceilings. Those are the edges I would look for if I was the Jets. Jalen Ferguson is another name. Arden Key, a guy who has not performed the way he's supposed to, but has had a really good camp with San Francisco. Those are guys I would, look for. I've seen Chandler Jones and Brandon Graham. Brandon Graham's contract's untradeable. I don't know that there's just legitimately no chance that the Jets could, make that move. He's a $35 million cap hit for getting traded. I mentioned Cam Gill as well. These are just names that are depth guys that, maybe can flash in the pan and hit their, peak, but it's tough unless you're going to go overpay for Chandler Jones, which again, I'm not saying they shouldn't do, but I don't know that's the best move, or it's just hard to get. Like, there's such a limited amount of really good edges. And on top of that, guys that are available and young, it's not easy to do. Someone asked me if they should trade for TJ Watt. Of course they should trade for TJ Watt. It will not happen. So I don't know why that's getting floated. The Jets will be very active on corner. Maybe a veteran gets cut. I said KJ Wright's a name that probably won't happen, but I would explore if I was the Jets, because Wright and, Mosley be pretty interesting, going forward for this year. I'd look at Zach Ertz if he gets cut or moved for a late round pick. I think he would instantly upgrade the Jets tight end room. You don't have to invest long term. Yeah, they'll be active. I think, again, edge, corner, tight end, and any interior offensive lineman that becomes available. I think those are the four positions I would say, the Jets, could be interested there. Specifically edge, though, because they just don't have as many bodies as they did going into camp, and you need bodies in Saleh's scheme.
Hulk Smash, thanks for the kind words about the show. I appreciate all of you watching this live or after we post this video following the broadcast. Same thing with you, R2DPU, enjoying the stream. Thank you so much. Jimmy's got a question here. What up, Jake? What are we going to do at linebacker? I like the young guys, but ... they need time. Yeah, I mean, Will, this is something we kind of hit on a little earlier. I mean, the Jets obviously need CJ Mosley to be CJ Mosley, because that will help the entire linebacker unit if he's really good once again. But they're going with a youth movement at that position. And, losing Gerard Davis is a big blow. Obviously, they brought him in to be a starter. They think in the system they play under Saleh and Albrecht, he was going to be an effective player again, not like what we saw with Matt Patricia the last couple of years for him. So that's certainly a loss. Youth at corner, youth at linebacker, other than Mosley, is kind of the theme for the defense, at least at that position.
Yeah, I just think they took a ton of flyers on really high upside. I don't know if people are familiar with the spider chart during the draft, but the Jets took it. It's kind of grades your natural athleticism. The Jets took everybody was top tier guys that maybe left a little bit to be desired on film, or position change, like a Hamza Nasruddin's a guy I think Jets fans are going to really like watching play football. He's a guy that I know Connor Rogers has probably a third or fourth round talent. And the Jets get him in the fifth or sixth round because of an ACL injury. Saleh's scheme, linebackers, kind of you need to do a lot, and it's kind of all around CJ Mosley. I know Jared Davis is a guy that fans are probably disappointed that got hurt, and yes, it's disappointing, but he's probably, unless he really played well, he's probably not a long-term answer at the position. And if Sherwood and Hamza can show, one of the two of them, if not both, show that they're real, real deal. I think a guy like Blake Hashman as well, who has shown really well when he's played. He's just always been hurt, and now that he's actually healthy and played a full preseason without getting hurt, I think it does matter. So, yeah, the linebacking core it's young, and it's going to be some growing pains. But CJ Mosley is an all-pro level linebacker, and they're only going to probably have two linebackers on the field at once, anyways. They do a lot of 4-2-5 stuff. I know someone just put up about Sherwood is a raw player, but at the end of the day, the Jets aren't expected to be a playoff team this year. And why would you not try to develop your young guys and say, okay, we have something here or we don't? And if he's not good, you now know going into the offseason, we need a Will and we need a Sam linebacker. If he's awesome, now all of a sudden you've got to steal in the sixth round, and you can that's how you develop guys. Fred Warner was a third-round pick, and he's the best linebacker in football because Saleh developed him.
You bet on upside late in the draft. You find a trait that you think could project to being a key player, key starter for you, and you hope you develop, that guy. Sherwood has some of those traits. They just need to develop them, and that's why you hope
Jonathan Marshall. Even Jonathan Marshall is an elite athlete, was playing nose, and he's not a nose in college. So obviously his production wasn't good. but he's really a 3-tech, and he's looked awesome in the preseason, and he's looked really good in camp, and his athleticism shown. I think he's going to make the team, and he's a 6th, 7th round pick, so you don't expect that. But these guys do so much scouting that, like, Joe Douglas, that's his bread and butter, should be the draft, right? Like, that's his thing. And like Saleh's thing is developing young talent, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I just, you got to have faith in the coaching staff. There's obviously reason to be concerned, but this roster is not final. The next 96 hours are going to be crazy in terms of cuts, trades, waiver wires. Douglas has always been active here, so don't freak out until you see that opening day roster and like the way these guys develop. Because again, if the Jets can solidify some young talent here, maybe they exceed expectations this year. They go 7-10, 8-9. You're feeling really good going into the offseason with, we have young talent, a quarterback, a coach, 4 top 45 picks, and cap space. Like, we're making the playoffs. We're going to go beat Buffalo. Not we're 4-13, a bunch of veterans like the Frank Gores and Chris Hogan's of the world, and we have no idea what we have going forward. That's what you don't want, and that's why I think there's reason to be excited, even if it's going to be, very up and down every week.
No doubt. And, ultimately, you got to have faith in this coaching staff that they're going to be able to make adjustments at halftime, develop the talent they have on this team, find diamond in the rough players that they could take a trait that they do well and, be able to develop them into being a starting player. I mean, that's what's been missing. Like, the best teams in the NFL, they don't have stars at every position. They're well coached and they maximize what they already have on their team. And, for years, the Jets haven't had that. I mean, the Jets haven't had a good coaching staff really since the first couple of years of Rex Ryan. And even that coaching staff was a bit limited on the offensive side of the ball, as we all know. So you just hope that the Jets have the right infrastructure in place, with a CEO type of head coach in Saleh. I think he's that guy. And, time will tell, but I think you got to be very encouraged by what you have seen so far this summer. So, Will, that's going to wrap it up. As Eric notes, smash that like button, guys. Yes, 135 of you are watching this, so that means I should be getting 135 more likes on this very video. But in all seriousness, I appreciate all of you for watching this channel. Thanks so much for watching this live stream. My name is Jake Asman. This has been the Jake Asman Show. Make sure you find Will's podcast. TurnOnTheJets.com is the website. The Turn on the Jets podcast, wherever you get your podcast, is where you could find his podcast. He features interviews with beat writers, national personalities. Current members of the Jets have been on the podcast as well. So definitely check out Will's podcast. He does a tremendous job. Once again, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe down below. Thanks for watching. I am on the radio today from 3 to 6 Eastern. I plan to talk some Jets on the show. You'll see those segments posted to the YouTube channel later today. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you soon. See ya.